Hello, friends. It's John Lone King, and I'm here for episode number 2 of my new podcast, From Profits to Properties. So today we have two great topics that I'm going to be talking about. The first topic is find your tribe. Who is your tribe in business? I'm talking about advisors, how to build a tribe of strategic advisors around you and what that can mean to the difference in your business going forward. The second topic after the break, we're going to talk about accidental rental. What's an accidental rental? Do I want to have one? Do I not want to have one? Should I purposefully have an accidental rental? So if you are a homeowner already, you're going to want to listen to this because a lot of us get accidental rentals that we never should have had in the first place. So let's go ahead and start off with the first segment today. So my first segment, as I said, is going to be about who's your tribe and how to find your tribe. And I will tell you from experience, I've had a tribe around me for probably the last 20 plus years. It started out back in the early 2000s, and it had been a focus of mine to build relationships with other local business owners, looking at it from the perspective of being in the mortgage industry. Having other business owners that know, like, and trust me can help me get referrals from them. So it was pretty self-serving for me to do that, but I didn't realize the true benefit until I actually joined a group that already existed in my local area. They had called CEO Roundtable. And it was a group of business owners that got together on a regular basis and talked through business issues. They basically acted as the board of directors for each other's businesses. Absolute game changer in my business, absolute game changer in my development. I was part of that group for probably the next 10 plus years. From 2005 maybe to 2015, that group helped me through a lot of major decisions. One of the biggest ones was actually a moment in early 2011. So the mortgage industry had just been completely turned upside down with the Dodd-Frank financial reform bill that was about to be official on April 1st of 2011. I was working for Wells Fargo at the time, and I just built a really big leg of my business doing renovation loans because we were coming out of the Great Recession, and there were a lot of people who had homes that were in really poor shape, and they needed good renovation, and we didn't have a great renovation team locally. So I stepped in, took the training, and was getting some great traction. And I got called into a meeting, and I was told that I had to make a decision. I had to focus only on doing renovation loans, or I had to focus only on doing the traditional loans, the normal, conventional, and FHA loans that everybody needs. And I couldn't continue to do both. And I was torn because I knew all my future growth was going to come from renovation loans. At least in the short term, it was the best opportunity for me. But I had a whole bunch of current and past clients that looked at me as their mortgage guy. And I didn't want to have to refer either one of those types of clients to somebody else. And so I brought this to the CEO Roundtable. We were sitting in the actual local Chamber of Commerce is where we hosted it. And we were sitting in the room, and there was probably 15 of us in the room, and I explained my dilemma. And sitting next to me was my CPA. And he said, so John, you've outlined that you have option A, which is to go with the renovation lending only, or you have option B, which is to go with the traditional lending only. And he goes, what about option C? And I said, what's option C? And he says, see you later, Wells Fargo. And he asked a really simple question that I hadn't thought about because he was looking at it from the outside. And he said, John, is every lender forcing you to make this decision, or is only Wells Fargo doing that? And I paused and I said, you know what? I don't know. I'd had my blinders on. It wasn't about what were all of my options. It was about what are my options within the options that were presented to me. And it took him ripping the blinders off. And that's how I ended up here at Summit Funding. And I've been here for the last 14 years. And it's been very, very successful for me. There are lots of stories like that I've impressed upon other people. I've been coached for the last 15 years, and I've been pouring my coaching into people in business groups that I've been a part of. That group happened to disband, and I've started 2 other business groups that I run. One of them we meet weekly, one of them we meet monthly. But it's about having a tribe. And if you can't find one, make one. Get together a group of business people and be clear with them, hey, I believe we all need a board of directors. And unless you are a large company, you don't have a board of directors. You are making all of the decisions within your own scope of seeing what's out there, of seeing what your options are. And that's the hardest thing to do, is to see outside of yourself. I only knew option A or option B. I didn't even recognize the option of see you later, Wells Fargo, until my CPA slapped me upside the head and said, what are you thinking? And so having that kind of a group that can get together regularly, you can use the content that I'm presenting every week here on my From Profits to Properties. I'm going to give you business tips and tactics every single week that you can now present to that business group. Host it as a roundtable environment where everybody can come in and share information about the topic. But one of the best things that I've done in many of the groups that I've been a part of is we've created the opportunity to have a closed meeting where you can share sensitive information about your business only to the members within the group. That's a game changer when it comes to trying to make a tough decision. I remember probably in 2009, 2010, there was a local business owner. He owned a retail store, and he had an option to open up a second location. And he didn't know what he should do. And so he came in and he brought in all of his numbers, brought in all of the plans and the costs, and we all poured it over it with him. And by the end of that hour, he walked out saying, this is the best hour I've ever spent. It was the most enlightening time because I got the input from all of these amazing business owners. And so if you don't have a board of directors like that, if you don't have a group of people that you can go to, create it. You probably already have somebody, a good business friend, a good person that you can have these conversations with, but you got to make it formalized, because that way you are regularly meeting, you're regularly talking about, hey, what is going well with you? What are you struggling with? What are some of the things that you have opportunities to work on? What are some of the threats to your business? Start talking through things, and it gets the juices flowing. It gets you in the place where you're thinking about your business and working on your business instead of working in your business. So if you don't yet have a tribe, go find it. Go talk to your local chamber of commerce and create it. Chambers are always looking for great ways to give back to their members. And so if you don't know who to connect with or how to connect, go join your chamber and become part of the chamber and ask them to help you build this group. You will not regret it, and it's going to help you take your business to the next level. Stay tuned for the second half of my podcast, where I'm going to talk about accidental rentals. We'll see you in just a second after this brief commercial. Hey, everybody. I just want to take a quick pause from today's show and remind you that if you are looking to grow your rental portfolio, do not fall into the trap of going through a fully verified income process. With my Rent Qualifier loan, you get similar interest rates to the full doc loan programs with a simple, stress-free process. All we look at is the rental income from the property that you're financing, whether it's a purchase or if you're pulling cash out on the property. You have lots of flexibility to qualify without having to jump through the hoops of proving your income. If you want more information, visit 85loanking.com/RQ or call us at 85 Loan King. That's 855-626-5464. Hey guys, welcome back to the second half of episode number 2. So I am going to talk about accidental rentals. What's an accidental rental? It's when you move out of your primary home and you convert it into a rental property. So it wasn't a property you purchased on purpose to make a rental property. It was an accidental rental. It's how most people become landlords, because they say, you know what? I own a rental property. I own my primary home and I'm buying another property. And it's always a good idea to own real estate. And if owning one is good, then owning two is better. So most people, their first rental is an accidental rental. It is a property that you moved out of, that you kept as a rental property. But there's a lot of things you got to think about to decide, is this a good idea or not? So first and foremost is the property itself. Is this property that was perfect for you as your home a good rental property? There's a lot of factors to consider. Part of it is it a luxury home? Is it the amenities of the home? Is a tenant going to ruin that and make it harder for you to sell down the road? So that's one challenge you got to think about. The second thing you got to think about is risk factors. In a lot of neighborhoods, a pool is actually a bit of a detriment when it comes to a rental property. It exposes you as the landlord to greater risk, and you're not going to make any additional rental income. You may be able to sell the house for more because it has a pool, but you're not going to rent it for more because it has a pool. And now you got to pay for upkeep. You got to pay for a pool maintenance person because you don't want to count on your tenant maintaining the pool. So now you have an additional cost associated with that. Things like RV parking, that may be good for resale value. Corner lots, great for resale value, doesn't really make it a better rental property. But I want you to think also about the financial consequences. So currently, IRS tax law says that if you're selling a home that you have lived in for 2 of the last 5 years, you can exclude some of your gain, some of the money that you have increased. It's one of the best tax write-offs that's out there. And how it works is, as an individual, you can exclude or not pay capital gains on $250,000 of increased value. As a married couple, you can make, married filing joints, you can have up to $500,000 of exclusion on a property as long as you lived there 2 of the last 5 years. Now, some people take this strategy and say, okay, I'll take my accidental rental, as you call it, John, and I'm going to rent it out for 3 years. And I'll sell it before the end of 3 years. So that way I will have lived in it as my primary home for 2 of the last 5. That's a great strategy, as long as you can get it sold exactly before the end of 3 years. If you are 1 day late, you pay taxes on the full amount. Plus, what's the tenant going to do to that property? If your plan is to sell it and it's in great shape now to sell it, what's 2.5 years worth of renting that property going to look like? And what's it going to mean in extra repairs that you're going to have to do? And so one of the things I want you to think about is I want you to think about resetting or cashing in on your basis. So if you bought a house for $300,000 and it's now worth $500,000, you can sell that home at $500,000 and you can take that $500,000 and invest it into buying rental properties that are better suited to be a rental property. Maybe you buy a multi-unit property, a 2, a 3, a 4-unit property, because more doors spreads out your risk. It gives you more hedge. If one of your tenants moves out, you don't lose 100% of your rental income. And so you want to think about what makes a good rental property. What neighborhoods are good for rentals? Now, there's an argument for what's called the executive rental property that says, oh man, executives will move into town and they need a really nice 4,000 square foot home for their family. And they do, but there's not a lot of demand for them. There's only so many executives looking for high-end luxury property as a rental versus at the lower end of the price range, there are more people, there is more demand. So you have to think about the supply demand curve, and it may be unique in every region. So don't take my word of saying one is better than the other. I'm giving you information to consider, things that you need to think about to say, hey, maybe instead of selling this house, instead of keeping this house as an accidental rental, and by the way, if you keep it for longer than 3 years, it becomes an even bigger problem. I'll talk about that in a second. But instead of keeping that as an accidental rental, you sell it right away and you trade it in. Remember, you don't have to do a 1031 exchange. I'll talk in a future podcast about that. But you don't have to exchange the property because you're selling it as your primary home. So you now have that full $500,000 in that example to go invest into the next property or properties. Maybe you buy something out of state in a market where the rents are greater per dollar amount of purchase price, because there are regions where the rent cash flows and there's regions where it doesn't. And here's where people make the biggest mistake. They say, well, no, it does cash flow because my payment is X, really, really low, and my rent is above that number. But you could cash flow a lot better in a different market. And so you have to think about, is my focus on cash flow or is my focus on appreciation? And there's a whole argument of the difference between the two, and I'll get to that in a future podcast as well. But when it comes to the actual decision-making financially, what you have to recognize is if you do keep an accidental rental and you keep it for the long term as a rental property, when you sell it, you're selling it as an investment property. Your basis is what you originally bought it for. So that means that $250,000 or $500,000 exclusion, you could have reset that number and started over by selling it and buying something else. But instead, you kept it as a rental for longer than 3 years. And now you're paying taxes on the current value, the sales price of the property, compared to what you originally bought it for, not compared to what it was worth when you converted it to being a rental. You lost the ability to use the best tax write-off that exists right now that I am aware of, which is saving literally $250,000, $250,000 to $500,000 that you can sell a property in appreciation and pay zero money to the IRS and taxes. You reset that, you start over with another property. Now that another property gets to grow, that's an investment property, and now you can grow that, and you pay taxes on the gain there, but you're not paying taxes on what the property had gone up from when you originally bought it to where you own it or what it's worth the day you turn it into a rental property. Guys, I hope this helps. I hope this information is valuable. I am for sure here to help guide you through the process of buying properties, whether they're primary homes, rental properties, luxury real estate. I want to be your guide. So please reach out to me if you have any questions about anything. Please, I'd love to get a rating. Just my second podcast out. So if you listened this far, I really appreciate it. I'd love for you to go on whatever platform you're watching and rate me. If you're subscribed, for sure, leave a comment, leave a rating, just build a little of my street cred as a brand new podcaster. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Hope you have an absolutely wonderful week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.